A very good evening, one and all present here. I welcome each one of you for today's webinar session. It is our initiative to promote mental health and well-being among the public. We never thought that we will learn it here in our 424th session. And all the unconditional souls who consented for giving their experiences and learning to the populations over here. And today with us, the resource person for our session is Sri Kuti. She is an alumni of Rajiv Gandhi National Institute and Institute of National Importance. And she has completed her MSc Counseling Psychology, and she's having a lot of experiences in counseling and education institutions. And right now, she is focusing on family and relationship counseling. I welcome today's speaker as well as all the participants for today's webinar session on behalf of Department of Psychology, the American College Madurai, and all our associating institutions like Madras School of Social Work, M.S. Chellamuthi Institute Madurai, Red Pond Educational and Psychological Research Center, and Yellow Pond Counseling Center. I welcome each one of you for today's webinar session. I invite today's speaker Sri Kuti to take over the session. She is going to talk about mindfulness and positive emotions. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you, Suresh sir. Thank you for the welcome note also. So thank you for all the organizations that are associated for this webinar, and as well as Suresh sir to give me an opportunity to share my views on mindfulness and positive emotions. Warm welcome to one and all who is being a part of this webinar. So I want it to be a very interactive section where, I don't know how about this WebEx, because I used to take seminars on Zoom. So there we have a chat option where people used to chat. I don't know how come here it is. Like, do we have an option like that where people can chat?
Yes, it is available.
Okay, because I would like to get your knowledge and your thought about the thing that I am presenting, because I don't know complete. I'm not complete in anything, I believe. So how old are you? Like, how is the Saturday going? Like, I am wait a second. Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm in Kanyakumari. It's very heavily raining from morning. So how is it about your places? How is it going? Can I get some?
Madurai is cloudy, not raining.
Okay. Then other places, how is it?
At Vellore, it's very cloudy, but it's not raining.
Okay, maybe you people get rain by night, I guess, because it's raining from morning here. Okay, so you all had your tea, coffee, everything?
Yes.
I am from Chennai, madam. It's slightly raining, that's all. Cloudy, yeah.
So anyway, the climate is very warm, very sleepy kind of climate. I call this climate a very sleepy climate because we can easily get into sleep. And so all had your tea, coffees. What about that? So is there anyone who doesn't like to have tea, coffees like me?
No. I used to have tea and coffee.
Yeah, because it is very difficult to find someone who doesn't like tea and coffee. We have the not only Indian culture, I think almost everyone have this habit of taking tea and coffee. So before coming to our topic, I don't know whether because of your luck or your unluck, my system is not working, my computer laptop is not working, and I can't provide you the PPT. So I'm apologizing that you have to see my face throughout for 1 hour. But I think these apps are very flexible, not like our life. So we can change the videos also. If you get bored seeing my face, you can change it to someone else's face, or you can change, you can see yourself too. So it's very flexible, not like our life. So let's get into things. So how was this is a period where we can say before pandemic and after pandemic, not after pandemic, we are going with the pandemic. So can you share some of the things that happened in your life before pandemic? There's some changes that happened after this 1.5 years of fighting with COVID and pandemic. Can someone share, did you learn something? If you didn't learn also, it is quite okay. Everyone has their perspective of their life. So I feel that everyone are living their life. Even everyone has a choice how to live. It is not like if I am learning something, it's not necessary that you should learn something. You're an individual, you have your choice. So can you please share what is the difference, or did you learn anything new in this COVID time? Can someone share that? Okay.
Can I
anything?
share? Can
Yeah,
I
yeah,
share?
Sure, great.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not able to on my video because very bad network. So that is the issue
It's
here.
okay.
And,
Okay.
I would like to share that like initial days of pandemic and the current days of pandemic. So that is the one I want to tell. So initially it
Okay.
was a shock, and I was like in shock, and it was full of agitation. How I'm going to handle the two kids, husband, in-laws in the same one roof. All 30 days, how I'm going to look at the faces morning till evening without going out. So that was thing running in my mind initially. Later, when I was into other counseling and other aspects, when I started listening to other people, what they are undergoing and other things, so slowly no the situation is like we get used to it. We got used to it that no with the ongoing of internet, I can travel anywhere, I can attend meetings, I can do, do meetings and other things, the positive sides of the aspects. And I can observe my kids what they are doing in the classroom, online classroom, and the same time we are have good time with all three meals we are sitting and having together as a family. So that is a positive aspects I see. And when a lot of people were telling about their lifestyle and how they are looking into, when we are discussing a lot of things, a lot of opening up happened inside me. And now the current situation, the second wave is people never expected this, and lot of the first circle itself we are listening to death and other things. So that is bothering a lot. If I pick up my mobile WhatsApp in the morning, first thing I used to see every day is good morning, but nowadays I'm not seeing good morning, it's RIP. So
Yeah.
that is really bad when we look into that particular RIP every day morning, and we are starting our day in the sense, it's like upsetting. It's completely upsetting, and we have to accept the reality also. And one more thing, being in the field of psychology, counseling, and other things, we need to take all the aspects trial in us, and then only we can the experience we can tell the patients also, clients also, follow these things, this is really working out, so this will help you to come out of this. So that is the aspect what currently I'm going through. So this is with regards to my experience I have shared with you.
Oh, that is a great, great insightful experience. It was really great, ma'am. Okay, someone else also send message in the chat. That was also great. So, like, is there anyone who want to share more, or like, let me go into my part of it? Is there anyone?
I'd just like to put a small addition to what ma'am has said. Like we are already facing a lot of problems. So the first lockdown, what happened was like obviously we started to be with the family 24/7, and lot of children, family, in-laws commitments were there. So the things did go wrong, like a lot of family misunderstandings and all came up. So what I did was, since you said how did you use your time, I read a lot of courses. So I constructively tried to use my energy. I tried to divert myself to be away from that problems or whatever I could. And to be open with you, being a psychologist, I needed counseling. I had one or two panic attacks because of unexpected expectations and a lot of troubles, because 24/7 at home, laptop, phone, two kids, family, husband, in-laws problems, mother's health. My mom was affected with COVID last year. I'm sorry, this February. So I had, even after my mother's COVID treatment, I had to undergo a little bit of counseling, and my university offers counseling services extensively. So I didn't shy away. Being a psychologist, I didn't feel that I should not go. I went, I clarified myself, and I got it. I had much more clear understanding, because sometimes we also need self-care. We need, because we have been seeing so much, lot of things we ourselves understand and we ourselves have to tell us, but that doesn't help us. So I just sharing that I also needed, and now I'm happy. Again, I'm using my time constructively, reading a lot and doing whatever is possible in this time. So that's how it is going now. Hopefully it will get better and it will be like old times, just waiting for the good times to happen.
Okay, yeah. this phase will also pass. Okay, so that was also a beautifully put out, like through your words. It was like we were able to understand like what you went through and like how it was. So as there are many psychologists over here, I'd like to ask, like, there will be some questions that people come up to us, like when I go everywhere, like wherever I go, people, when I tell them that I'm a psychologist, I usually get many questions. And like, did you ever faced anything like that? Like people will ask you some questions. Can you share, like, as there are many psychologists over here, let me know like what are the questions that you are getting? Like I used to get like, can you read what is in your mind? Like as if like we are mind readers. So the second question that I get always is like, so you don't have like you will be always calm, you won't have any anger, so you know to manage your emotions very well, so you're super living happily. That is the second question. And the third question that I get always is like, as I am a mother, so your child will be the best child, so he will study very well. Being a psychologist, and I don't know, he will be well managed, he will obey all the things that you say, so he's a super kid. So these are the three questions, like popular questions. There are many questions that I get. So these are the popular three questions. Oh my God. When I'm telling three popular questions, I feel that I'm being a celebrity, like telling three popular questions. So that I get is always this. So initially, in the initial time of my practice, like I used to get confused, like what to say to these questions. I'll smile because I didn't know anything. So then I thought that the beautiful way to put out is like smile. So I used to smile like whenever someone asked me all these questions. But during this COVID lockdown period, I learned something. That is what I'm going to share with you. That is mindfulness. So mindfulness enabled me to answer all these questions very beautifully. So I always like things very aesthetic. I look to the aesthetic side of things. So when someone talks also, I'm being mindful with them and I appreciate when it is very beautiful. Like you talk very beautiful. So I learned how to put it out very beautifully. So coming to our first question. I want to tell you one thing. So whatever I tell, you may feel that why she's talking this, why she's talking that, but follow with me. I'll connect it to mindfulness somehow. Somehow or the other, you can get me getting connected to the mindfulness talk. So don't worry, I have a notebook here and I have written all the points, so I won't go away from my points. Okay. So coming to our first question is like, can you read others' mind? So if someone has the patience to listen to me, and if someone really wants to know that whether I can read others' mind, I get into the point that, okay, I'll tell you, there is a blessed thing that 25,000 years before the Eastern culture has provided us. It's called mindfulness. But Westerners took it and they are advocating it. But I'm very thankful to the Westerners because I came to know about this beautiful concept from Westerners. So whoever it is, whoever adopts it, whoever spread it, but it is better for the society. So with mindfulness, what I learned is like, I learned mindfulness. When I learned mindfulness, I also encouraged me to be kind. Like when I see a situation, when I'm in a situation, I observe mindfully that situation. I'm being completely present in the situation rather than thinking something else. So when I see a person, as I'm completely present, I developed a kindful attitude. I'm able to understand from his behavior cues what the other person is feeling. Maybe like when I go to some places, like last day I went to a shop, so it was a COVID situation, and one one old lady was like the age of my grandmother. She was standing there, and like she was, her hands were kind of shivering, and she was looking little panic. So as I'm very grounded to my environment, as I am very aware about what all the things are happening around me rather than in my thoughts, as I had a kind attitude, empathy is something that we all therapists has to develop, right? As I was training myself on empathy, kindness, compassion, I was able to understand that something is wrong with her. It's not that I was able to read the mind of the person. From the behavior cues and what I practiced in mindfulness, I was able to understand something was wrong with her. And as we have a kind or compassionate attitude, we just go and ask the person, do you need any help? I think that you are looking little tired or something like that. Do you need any help? So this is what we psychologists, it's not only psychologists, anyone can be. We don't read the minds of the people, but we understand, we are in the present and we understand from the behavior of the other person. It's not reading minds. So that is the first answer. So like, do you want to comment anything, Surya sir?
No, continue.
Okay. So that is my first answer to the first question. Do you read others' mind? Can you read others' mind? So I'm going a little bit faster because there is time limit, and I wanted to know other people's, like, we have a 20 minutes discussion. So I wanted 20 minutes to know like what you think about mindfulness and what are your thoughts and what are your, how you apply it and or how you apply in therapy. So I'm going a little bit fast. So the second question they ask is like, are you always happy? You don't get angry. So I feel that I am human being, right? I'm not perfect. I am a human being. Human beings are people with emotions. When things are not happening good at my house, when I have a 7-year-old, when he is not doing things that I wanted to do, I get angry. But it never becomes a problem for me. I get angry. It's an emotion. So as I practice mindfulness, I'm able to understand emotion. I start loving that emotion. I accept the emotion. I understand what's happening in my body. If I feel so much tightness in my chest, I know to relax it. I know what should be my tone when I speak to my son. How should I speak to my son? What are the words that I have to put to my son? This doesn't require too much of time and work, but you require practice. You require practice to put it out. So we all have emotions. We all have everything. Okay, can you think about someone in the high rush of traffic, patiently sitting in the car for 1 hour? Can you imagine someone like that? Or like our neighbors going to trips at all around the world and watching without a tinge of jealousy and unconditional love towards someone. So when someone asked me first time, can you imagine someone? I was imagining the dog that my neighbor had. I have seen him patiently sitting in the car without any problem. He just needs food. And like, he doesn't have anything when people goes around. I'll tell you frankly, I'll tell you very open that initially after my career, when other people were getting job, I had some heart palpitation, something very tight in my chest. I used to experience. Then I understood that it's a normal part. We are humans. We are not, like, we always have this unrealistic standards of perfection. I don't know from where it comes. We always have this unrealistic standards. But let me tell you, like, jealousy or anything is something that is not good for us also. There are many ways that you can overcome it also. So my point is, like, every human beings have emotions, but God has given us something called brain, which help us to manage it too. So being a psychologist also, I go through emotions, but none of my emotions becomes a problem to me. I know how to handle it. So we'll be talking about that in mindfulness section. Third thing that everyone asks is about my kid. I tell you, my kid doesn't obey me most of the times. he just does the things that is opposite to what I say always. So as a psychologist, I'm interested in neuroscience, everything. So we know that the frontal lobe will be completely developed by the age of 25 only. So they will be impulsive. So when an adult person is doing something childish, we call them, are you childish? Are you kids? Why we call them like that? They are kids. Like, our kids are kids. What I make sure is that to provide an environment where he is living with a person who knows to manage the emotions, who is happy. So I can't provide him everything, but I can provide him an environment where he sees someone, that his mom, who is dealing with his anger issues, who is dealing other situations, who is dealing the COVID situation. Even though there is a DNA structure that plays a role in our personality, I do believe that learning and experiences also shapes this. I can't take my take my child like my client and sit in front of him and tell that this is this, we should do this, you should do that. I can't do that because his attention span is very short and his frontal lobe is not completely developed. There are many neurotic pathways that has to be developed. So this is not the right time to keep him and give his all the suggestions, do comparisons, and this is never the time. So what I do is I try to provide a safe environment for him where he knows someone who is managing the emotions properly. Like somehow, like I keep like my son sometimes reacts like my father. So I used to think that I can't react like that with my, or respond like that with my father, because the boundary that my parents gave were very closed. But now the boundary that I am giving my son is little more bigger. But there is boundary. It's not without any boundary, because 25 years their frontal lobe is not developed. So we need to put some boundary, but it should not be very small boundaries. It should be big boundaries. So like initially I thought that being a mom was the hardest job in this world, like having a son, especially in this COVID. We have to take care of him 24/7. But I was into mindfulness. I'm practicing mindfulness for the last 6 months. So when I started practicing it, really it does wonders to my life. Okay, we'll talk later. Am I going very fast? It's okay. Okay. So let me tell about my journey, how I went into mindfulness, and because I feel like it is very important, rather than me telling about the definition, all these things, because I was like a very normal person. I would say that I was not a normal person. I had a lot of problems, not normal person. So I had a lot of problems. So like my journey would be very helpful for some of you to relate, and it would, because it would help me also to get an insight into some better insight into what I was going through. So I was born in a average normal family. My parents were government employees, all that stuff. So I didn't have that bad childhood and all. I was grateful. I'm still grateful that I didn't went into too much of issues, but had little bit of issues, because everyone's issues are the main issues for everyone. A big problem for everyone. No issues are smaller. Like if someone tells me that you have this issue, I always be with them. I don't tell them that, oh, this is a very small issue. It's not like that. Each person's way of resilience, way of coping up is very different. So every problems are very important before me. Like every therapist, it's like that. All the problems are very important. So during my childhood, I always feel that biryani was something that will make me happy. Whatever it is, biryani. If any problem happens in life, if I eat biryani, that's it. I'll be happy. And in Kerala, we used to get delicious Malabar biryanis. And I don't know, in our childhood, we didn't have Swiggy and all. We have the habit of eating from outside only when I used to visit my grandma's place. So that was the only time I get biryani. And when I was growing up, my cousins and all, they got job, and they used to bribe me saying that you will be given a biryani if you do this. And I always felt that biryani was something that makes my mood happy. That something makes me happy. I got upgraded to college, and my habits also got upgraded. It's not that I changed from one biryani to two biryani. Not that big change. From one biryani, I changed to two biryanis. So two biryanis was going happy with me. So I didn't have much issues, I think. Because two biryanis were. When I got married, then there was a huge change from biryani to ice cream. Because we get ice cream always. At night, we don't get biryanis. And we can eat ice cream at any time also. Biryani, if we eat biryani at night, like someone will come and say, why are you eating biryani at night? And in shops also, we don't get biryani open. So when I got married, I had a lot of things, lot of emotional imbalance. So I had to eat a lot of ice creams. So then ice creams became, so as we people do, like for eating ice creams, we used to find many reasons. I am moody, I'll eat ice cream. I'm sad, I'll eat ice cream. I'm happy, I'll eat ice cream. So it is my PMS, I'll eat ice creams. I'm on my periods, I'll eat ice creams. I'm ovulating, I'll eat ice creams. Oh, my son smiled today, so I'll eat ice cream. My son went to school happily, I'll eat ice cream. So I had a lot of reasons for ice creams. And I was thinking that, okay, ice creams are something that is making me happy. So this happened like that. I started working for Sona College of Technology. Do you know Sona College? Anyone here knows about it? Okay, it's in Salem. Okay, it's an engineering college. So I started working for there. So we had a program where the head of the departments are called. As I was an independent dependent, I was the head of the department. I was the peon. I was the clerical staff. I was the everything of the department. Even I used to sweep my room too. So I was the all in all, and I was the head. So on that day, actually, I had to talk about, I think it was their farewell day or something. I don't remember. So I had to talk to the audience on that day. So initially what happened was I was having a very bad throat pain, very severe throat pain, and I was spitting blood, and I had tonsil infection. But I went to college, so we were having great feast. So there were a lot of things, and there were a lot of ice creams also. So we had few friends. So the friends took a big ball of ice cream, and they came to me, and I was sitting there, I was thinking, oh my God, the ice cream that I thought was making me happy is making me cry today. So I got really confused. What's happening to me? And I thought that, okay, I thought about it. I came home. Then I was thinking on that day, like, what does it happen? This happened 2 years before, okay? 3 years before. I started thinking, like, what's happening? What's happening? I don't like, why is like that? This thing is something that makes me happy always. But now it is not making me happy. So what is it happening? Next day I woke up. There was no issues with me. I went to hospital, so I came normal. As we all people, when there is an issue, only we will think over it, right? Because we will all every day. I used to think that I have to reduce my weight. I have to do exercise. I have to do exercise, but I'll find excuses. Oh, today's Tuesday. Wednesday is the good day to start. Okay, I'll start on Wednesday. Am I audible to you all? Okay. Okay. So I'll think that I'll start dieting on Wednesday. Wednesday is good day. So until I get a diagnosis that the doctor tell me that if you don't exercise, something will happen to you. Then on the same day we will do exercise. Our brain is like that. When there is an alarming thing comes, then only we will start to think what we have to do. Unless we won't think, we will sit back, very cool, very relaxed with what all things that we have. So I was also like that. Nothing changed happened. But during COVID, I had a very bad, I went through a very rough phase in my life. I had some very serious problem that was happening in my life. So if I get the guts to share it, maybe I'll share in the coming sessions or somewhere. So I was going to a very bad phase in my life. That time I decided, I sit back and I decided, I was going into depression. I thought of visiting a psychiatrist to take the pills and also it was a very bad phase in my life. That time I seriously started deciding like, I should come out of this. I should do something. I should find something that it can be helpful for me. There, one of my friends, she's not associated with the psychology, she told that, see, nowadays mindfulness, there is a concept like that. Okay, you get in touch with that, or you read about it, and maybe you will find interest in that. So I was telling her that I lost interest in everything. I'm not able to do anything. I'm not able to, I get bored, like boring life. Everything, same things are happening. Waking up in the morning, so nothing new happening. So I quit my job also to take care of my son. So I came up with mindfulness. So when I started doing mindfulness, okay, can you share some of your some of your views about mindfulness? What do you think mindfulness is? Can some of you share it? It's okay if you don't share also. If you know, you can share like a few lines, or a single line is enough. Can you share? Maybe you can write in the chat box. Do you have any idea? Yeah.
Hi, Sri Kuti, Jayakran this side. So mindfulness to me is a very simple thing, being in the moment, present with what you want to do. So you can even be mindful when we are in this session, which means I'm just glued into seeing Suresh sir and you, and just listening to you, and just ensuring that all my senses are tuned to you, right? So that's mindfulness to me in a very amateurish way. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. And we hope that looking at you, you're having positive emotions. Hope so. Okay. So anyone else? Okay. Or let me go into, because we have time shortage. So according what sir told earlier, mindfulness is, for me, it is like being in the present with attention and an attitude of kindness, care, curiosity, and compassion. So initially, I also thought that mindfulness is being in attention alone, or like with a purpose. But I'll tell you, when I started practicing mindfulness, excuse me. So when I started, when I started practicing mindfulness, what happened is, initially I know that I am a very impulsive person. I can't sit at a place, because I was a person who I myself diagnosed after after studying psychology, that I had kind of ADHD problem. I can't sit at a place. So when I was studying in a college also, you can see my books will be completely with drawings, because I can't keep my hands like simply like very disciplined way. So I used to scribble something or something. And so initially what I did is I know that if I practice mindfulness in my bed, I'll completely sleep off. I won't do anything. So I decided that I'll take a place where which looks so like so spiritual, all this kinds of stuff, and I'll sit there. So initially what I did is I sat there for I sat 10 minutes in a chair that I took for my mindfulness. I sat there. I learned to sit for like 10 minutes. Then I started practicing. Oh my God, I should tell you. When I was practicing mindfulness, the thoughts that I had the incidents that happened 20 years before, or my school days were coming into my mind. Like one of my friends didn't give me ice cream on her birthday. That was on that that images were also, that thoughts were also coming to my mind. Oh my God, I don't know. Most of the memories that I forgot were coming to my mind when I was in mindfulness, when I was trying to be mindful, like paying very attention to my breath. So these thoughts were going somewhere or the other. Then I started judgmenting, criticizing. We are super Olympics in self-criticism, right? Okay, okay, let me ask you something about this. Can you tell me something that you don't like in you? Can someone of you share something that you don't like in you that you want to change? Can someone share? Okay. Can someone
Procrastination.
yeah,
Procrastination.
tell me. Oh, procrastination. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Keep in your mind. At least you know that. That's what I'm telling. Like when most of us can tell something or the other. So we always a super Olympics in self-criticism. So I started criticizing myself. Like I started thinking that I'm not doing it properly. I started judging me like you're not fit for this. You're not fit for this. You should quit it. You're not fit for it. You can't keep your mind and attention. Then I started reading. Then I came to explore that it is not only purpose and attention. There is an attitude that has to be put. That attitude is kindness, compassion, like gratitude, generosity. All this attitude has to come. Then only you can be into a meditating state. Okay, there are maybe ancient. I'm not going into ancient vipassanas and all. I'm talking about the normal person. What I explored in this. So then the question is like, how to develop this kindness? When I was sitting, I was thinking like, I'm not getting any feeling of kindness. I don't know how to develop this kindness, how to develop kindness in meditation. That was something bothering me. Then I explored that most of us have kindness towards others, but we don't have any kindness towards us. We don't think about kindness, relating kindness to us. We always think about relating kindness to others. Then I started practicing in a way that when I get a thought in my mind, like first thing that I did for this is like whenever I wake up in the morning, I just put my hands on my chest and I close my eyes and say that, Shrikuti, I love you so much. Shrikuti, I love you so much. Hi, how are you? Good morning. I used to say all these things. Shrikuti, I love you so much. Hi, how are you? Good morning. I understood that a gentle voice to yourself or like a compassionate touch to yourself is kind of self-loving or self-kindness. So when I was practicing this, what I did was when I get an emotion that is very hurting to me, at that point of time of mindfulness, because I told you there are three components. One is purpose, second is intention, and third is attitude. So we have a purpose. When I'm meditating, my purpose will be like I have to keep in touch with the present environment, or I have to be present where I am. I have to understand the changes that's happening in body. I have to be aware about it. That will be my purpose. I'll have an intention, attention. Attention is like I can focus on my breath or something, anything. Initially, focusing on breath was very traumatizing for me because I used to remember a lot of hurtful events. So I used to focus on my thumb. Whenever my attention was, I just focus on my thumb and I just get it back. So what I did is, when I have a bad emotion or something like that, I just start loving that emotion. I tell that emotion very kindly that, okay, wait, I'll deal with you later. Now my purpose is something else. May I go to my purpose? When I come back to my hand, I tell that, welcome Shri, welcome to your purpose. So this is something that I used. It differs from person. So I'll tell you that mindfulness or meditation, you should go very slow and be easy with it. You can't, it is not an Olympic thing. You can't go fast. Very slow and be easy with it. So that is what I used to do. So when a thought comes, I just accept the thought. I feel like hugging my thought, like very kind, compassion to my thought. And I tell the thought that, okay, wait, I know that you are here. I'll come back to you. So after that meditation, I just take a 10 minutes break. I come back. I deal with that thought. The way I used to deal is like, I used to be in a meditating position. I used to get that thought in my mind. So usually how we are traumatized in this trauma phase, we will be expecting someone to respond in some way to us, like being kind to us, being compassionate to us. When someone was too kind and compassionate, and when they were so loving to us, that memory won't hurt as much. We will be expecting some kind of reassurance or something from them. So what I used to do is like, I go back to my hurtful memory. I imagine myself saying compassionate words to that, healing it by slowly. So what happened is like after some 10 or 20 days, that memory slowly faded from my mind. That thoughts which was disturbing me didn't come to my mind. But we all are humans. Now also thoughts come to my mind. So it's not that hurting thoughts, maybe something that I have to prepare for tomorrow or something like that. But that time I tell with very kindness and with very generosity and love, I tell my thought that, okay, can you please wait for some time? I'm on a purpose right now. Let me do this and I'll come back to that. I try to be on meditating. So initially, this self-love and self-kindness, I used to feel that whether I'll become very selfish or like a very self-obsessed person when I practice self-kindness or self-compassion, because we are in a society who like our like we are taught like we should always respect others, we should always give things to others, we should always take care of others. No one told much about taking care of us. And when we do some acts, people use you are a selfish girl, you are selfish, you are selfish. This is something that you hear always. So I thought like whether I'll become a selfish person. Then I understood that once we practice self-love, self-compassion, self-kindness, it just flows from us. We just started exploring the different areas of it. I'll tell you an example. Initially, when I used to like, as sir told, it is not necessary that you have to be like you have to be in a like meditating process or 20 minutes you have to be in a calm place to practice mindfulness. Not at all. Like now we are practicing mindfulness, like when you have a purpose, the purpose is like get the maximum from me will be the purpose, like to know what she is experiencing, what she has experienced. Attention is like how you're paying with me, and a kind attitude. Kindness can be like, at least she came up to share what she has learned. So you can share, you can give me a kind attitude towards me, what I'm saying. You can be mindfulness. So I used to wash the utensils. So that is the time where I don't like washing utensils. So I thought like, okay, I'll implement mindfulness there. So when I'm washing plates, when I take the plates, I used to feel that like how many people's efforts are there so that this plate came to me. I used to love that plate. I used to watch that plate. I used to touch the plate and feel it, grounded with it. And I used to think like, oh my God, I should be thankful for all the people who have worked to bring this plate in my hands. So practicing mindfulness, practicing kindness, it is like, this is the main, like, I agree that attention and purpose is necessary, but when you add kindness to it, it goes into another level. Okay, about this, I'll tell you a story. Initially, when I was practicing mindfulness, I used to sit and I used to practice. So one day, my son woke up early, and he came and he touched my feet, and he kept on touching my feet. Then I asked what happened. Then he told, "Amma, are you going to become a saint?" I was like, "Saint." Then he told like, "Amma, I have seen sannyasis and all doing what you are doing. Are you going to become a saint?" Then I was surprised that a 7-year-old thinks that I'm going to become a saint. And another thing is that, so there is no difference between 7-year-old and 35-year-old, my husband. I started experiencing the benefits of mindfulness, and one day in discussion, I told my husband that you should start practicing mindfulness. Oh, it is so great. I feel so calm, relaxed. I feel so like lively. I feel so deep rooted. Then he told me like, I'm not in 50s like you. I was like, I have some gray hairs on my hair. Does that make me 50s? So there is not much difference between my son and 35-year-old my husband viewpoint of mindfulness and meditation. It is not. It's not a spiritual practice, or it is not a practice itself. It can be a way of living. What I feel is like, you don't have to be saint or sannyasis, or you don't have to be in your 50s or 60s to practice mindfulness. So when I was practicing this self-kindness, one day I got a call from my friend, and so I was sharing her like when I sweep my floor, and when I don't like things I try purposefully to indulge mindfulness. And then she asked me like, Shri, are you smoking something? Are you smoking something marijuana and all? You're talking as if like you're intoxicated. And I was like, no, it's not intoxication. This is how the real of me. Like I got my like what consciousness, and I'm talking. This is what I am. So there is a notion about mindfulness. I don't know. In this present world, we are more. Many people are talking about mindfulness, but what I say is that once you practice, suddenly you will understand how difficult it is and how blessed procedure is that. How blessed practice is that. So when I am always someone who always looks for scientific evidences. When I study something, or like I always ask, what is the proof for it? Even my son asks me every time when I tell something that you should not do this, he asks me like, what is the proof? Definitely things will be transformed to him too. So I am the one who always asks, what is the purpose? And he also asks. So I used to look back into what are the science, or there are any scientific studies. So it is true that when we are in the state of meditation or mindfulness, our areas of brain which are associated with the learning, thinking, kindness, compassion, that grows. And there is cortical thickening that is happening, that there are new neurons that are formed in our cortex. So there was past, no, I don't know, like for a long time, I also believe that when someone gets into an adult stage, there is not much changes that we can give to his attitude or give to his personality. It will be very stable. So there is nothing much can do. But when you practice all these things, you can change your neurotic pathways. You can change the, not neurotic, synaptic pathways. You can change the structure. You can change not the structure, you can grow the structures and all. So there are a lot of studies. If you want to go back to the studies conducted by Harvard University. Like they are studying from, I think from 1990 and all, they are studying this how brain changes with meditation, mindfulness, all these practices. So what I want to share with you is mindfulness is like paying attention with a purpose, with a care and compassionate and generous attitude. You should learn to develop that attitude. If you develop that attitude, you will be very easily able to manage everything. Like when you are emotionally down, you ventilate it, you get grounded to it. You just like pamper that as you are having a child, your emotions, you can pamper your emotions, and you can well manage, and you can hug your emotions too. So we have two parts of this. The second part is wait a second. Okay. So am I audible to you, everyone? Okay, I'm going a little fast because I'm also seeing the time. It's 5:46. So I don't want to bore you. I know everyone's attention span and how long people can be. So talking about the other part, we have another part also, positive emotions. So I really love something that I really like in psychology is thoughts, thinking process, everything. Do you know how many thoughts we get in a day?
It's
In a day,
60,000.
yeah, great. 60,000. You told 60,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In 2020, one study conducted, and it's okay, always near. That's great attempt. 62,000 thoughts we get, and almost all are repetitive. Most of the thoughts are repetitive thoughts. 90% are negative. Don't ever take face value of your thoughts. 90% will be negative. 62,000 thoughts we are getting. Like when you start writing, because when I heard initially about this, I started writing my thoughts. Then I also realized that like most of the thoughts are repetitive thoughts. I'm having repetitive thoughts, and most of them are negative only. Like it is told that all you are is what you think. All you are is what you think. And there is something that I really like. This is from Deepak Chopra. The best of your imagination is creativity, and the worst is your anxiety. How beautifully it is said. The best of your imagination, the best part of your imagination is creativity. It comes out as creativity, but the worst of your imagination, it comes out as anxiety. So, what I usually tell my clients when someone comes to me, I always take mindfulness as a base for every client, whoever it is. I make sure that I know how to convince the person. I don't know, I'm very good at it, convincing someone, like convincing a situation. So I convince my clients for mindfulness. It's simply I teach them how to be mindful, all these stuff. And on top of it, that will be my base. And on top of it, I use CBT, I use for CBT, cognitive input, all these products. So about this thought that I tell my clients is that not your thoughts. Like always, not your thoughts. Like what are your thoughts? Even it is repeated or any thoughts, not your thoughts. Look for evidence. And you come and tell me what all the thoughts went right. So now I'm going to tell, so if I'm telling about, like I teach my clients to label the thoughts. Like if any another session happens, I will tell you how to label your thoughts and how to understand your cognitive distortions and reframe it. So coming to our point about mindfulness and all. So what I want to tell is, like, there is something called experience dependent neuroplasticity. Experience dependent neuroplasticity. It is nothing. It's like brain changes without experience. Brain changes without experience. So we can so what we practice, that grows. Okay, when we go to the gym and when we try to practice building our muscles, it grows. Same way, what we practice, it grows. Anything, if in positive thinking, anything what we practice, it grows. So being a psychology student, I always make me as my subject. If something is very interesting to me, not everything, if something that really interesting to me, I take myself as a subject. And I was going through some bad phases in my life, so I pick up that. So whatever, like, first thing that comes to your mind will be negative, because we are trained that way. So when a negative thought comes, I tell to my thought that you are my old way of thinking. I have a new way of thinking, that is positive thoughts, and I'll put something positive. That if I can't find anything positive in that thought, I'll tell to myself that I am alive. What is that you want more than this? I am alive to desire my life, and what is that you want? So I started implementing positive thoughts to myself. Whatever happens, if anything small happens, and I try to look into the positive side of things. If before and all, if someone if I see someone interested in a way, I used to judge people. So I stopped judging also. And I used to think negative sometimes. But now if someone goes in a dress that's not appropriate for my culture, I just think that, oh, how courageous that lady used to go in this, walking in this road. How courageous that lady. I take the positive things. How beautiful she looks in that. Maybe I won't look that great in that. How beautiful she looks in that. So I started finding positive things. So back in my mind, I forgot about the thing, because after practicing for 1 week, it became kind of automatic in my mind to think positive. And 2 months later, I had a health condition. So I got my periods and my bleeding was not stopping by the 5th day, but I was very calm. I decided in my mind that I'll wait for 10 days. If I have a severe pain, if I have a vomiting, if I have a fever, I'll go to the hospital immediately. Else I'll wait for 10 days, because it was lockdown here. It is not easy to take my son to the hospital. So my husband, he's working in a public bank. So they are the frontline workers too. So they have to go. So I thought that I'll take a 10 days time. But during this 10 days, never in my mind a negative thought came. Never in my mind. I was like, okay, there are some things that are in my control. I'm doing that things. There are some things that are out of my control. And I don't have any evidence to prove anything, because I don't know what's happening in my body. I was showering kindness and compassion. I was practicing mindfulness. So there is no pain, nothing for me. 10th day also, I wasn't able to go and see the doctor because of some lockdown issues here. I went on 14th day. They asked me to take a scan. So waiting for the scan room, before, if I was asked to wait before the scan, I used to shiver. I used to go to the washroom. I won't be able to, like, we should drink water and we should wait. I won't be able to, because I'll be shivering, I'll be palpitating. Oh, what is going to happen in the scan? What is going to happen in the scan? All these thoughts of it. But trust me, guys, I didn't had any negative thoughts in my mind. I was practicing mindfulness when I was sitting there. I was observing everyone without judgment. I was trying to observe everything around me. I was trying to observe myself. Like when I was feeling a little bit tensed, I just softened my body and telling that whatever it is, you are there. What is it? Whatever it is, you are there to face. Nothing, no, nothing to worry. I went to the scan. I was diagnosed with a problem. I'm in medication also. When I was diagnosed with a problem also, I never felt anything negative about it. I was like, okay, let's see how it goes. So this is what we practice that grows. You can practice in your daily life. And I asked one of my clients, she was having this hypochondria problem. Whenever she reads something, she feels that she is having that problem, she is having this problem, she was hypochondriac. So I suggested this technique to her. I told her, like, think positive. Whatever, if you have a negative event, think what is the evidence supporting it. What is the evidence? Do you know that? Do you know that if there is no evidence, tell your brain that, my dear brain, this is a wrong way of thinking. I don't have any evidence supporting it. Let me be cool. And I taught her how to relax her body, everything. Along with that, I taught her mindfulness, how to feel grounded, how to relax your body. All these things I told her. And like after 1 month, when she came back, she told that she was very relaxed. She told that it worked for me. It doesn't mean that it should work for everyone. So we therapists used to change the therapies, right? If one therapy doesn't work for one person, we change it. But this, as we practice, that grows. Here, I also want to tell about something, shame and guilt. That was something that is haunting me a lot. Shame and guilt. Guilt of not reaching anywhere in my career. Shame of not doing anything in my life. Then I learned that this shame and guilt, as a result of this shame and guilt, lot of non-epinephrines and lot of cortisols are flooded into our body, and it stops our learning process. It completely shuts down the area of the brain that is responsible for learning and growth. Rather, show some kindness to what you feel. You didn't reach anywhere. Show some kindness to that part of you, that emotion of you, and see how it transforms you. You will get confidence. Your self-esteem will boost. You will start loving yourself. So love yourself and develop the passion for self-love, compassion, kindness, because I feel that that is the best way to change anyone's behavior. Like if you are a therapist, if you're practicing it, just do that and see how it is affecting. Because for me, I will be my subject initially when I start any therapies. If I'm interested in any form of therapies, I will always look into what I can do. Like I'll apply on myself. I'll take a problem of myself and I'll see how it works. This was something that worked amazingly for me. And about DBT also, dialectical behavior therapy. If, as I was discussing this, I thought that I'll put a small comment about it. DBT is like, what I feel is that when some clients comes to us, we should never tell them that you are doing it in a bad way. This is not the way to do. Okay, this is a bad way, or this is something. It never works. You should accept that. Every person should accept that I am doing, and I always tell my clients that, okay, the thing that you're doing is right. Maybe from the knowledge that you have, because of your situations, because of your genes, that is good. That is, maybe that is the best for you. But I'll suggest you another way, and let us think about the positive and negatives of this. Of the thing, I accept you as a person, I accept you as an individual, I accept your decisions, I accept everything that you're doing. But let's tell you another way, and let's see the positive and negatives of this. So, and I tell them that there is always a possibility to change and learn, and growth. That is always through our life. But the main thing is that when you accept something, then only change take place, learning take place, growth take place. So I always encourage. I never, earlier in my practice, I used to judge people. I used to comment on them, and like I was a very, I don't know, I was a very worst, not bad, worst psychologist, I think. But now I learned. It learns. Okay. Thankfully, I didn't counsel much because my group was students. Yeah, this is what, like, when there is an acceptance, then only there will be change, learning. Everyone wants to get accepted, right? Everyone, it is our innate need, acceptance. So when a client comes to us, when we accept them completely, okay, this is something from your limited environment, from your limited knowledge, from your drives, from your genes, this is what you did. I'm not going to blame anything about it, but I have something better, and let us compare. Like, what is let's compare and decide like which will work for you. So DBT, in DBT also we have mindfulness. We talk about mindfulness in DBT also. So this is what I want to tell you. Like, practice mindfulness. Am I audible to you? Okay. Practice mindfulness, and when you practice only, you will get to know how difficult and how blessed the procedure, like the process is, and also this positive emotions building. So this is also, like, there are a lot of studies and research. You can get back to the research. There are a lot of research happening in Harvard University. They try to develop compassion in the people. There is 8-week research, and they find that they were able to develop compassion in the people. So, I'll tell one. There is a neuroscientist called Robert. I don't remember the complete name of him. In 1990, he met Dalai Lama, and Dalai Lama, he was a very successful neuroscientist, and Lama asked him, like, told him, like, why are you learning this stress, anxiety about brain? Why can't you learn about compassion, kindness in the people's brain? Because that can bring a lot of difference in their anxiety and stress. When we love ourselves, when we have a unconditional compassion towards ourselves, we just spread it to others, and it can resolve most of the issues. So this neuroscientist was called a dumb or a duffu in his institute, but later the studies is supporting it, and lot of when you get into the Harvard University site, you get a lot of evidence supporting this neuroplasticity. There is epigenetics. Epigenetics is like, there are genes, there can be changes in the gene that contribute to the brain structures, or like which decides our thought process and all. There is something called epigenetics also. You can get into that. So mindfulness is not a religious practice, not a spiritual practice. It's not only attention. It's a way of living. It teaches us how to live wisely, how to be grounded, how to experience the world. So don't waste the opportunity. In this COVID time, we get a lot of time to practice it. I got a lot of time. We have to think the positive sides. Even though COVID is a very pandemic and it's affecting many people, let's explore something that good that we can do. So thank you for listening to me. I was a little fast because I wanted to conclude all the things that I wanted to share. So I hope you got at least some insight about what my learning is. My learning won't be complete, but I make sure that whatever I say will be true. There won't be any. I make sure that there won't be any mistakes in whatever I say. Okay, so yeah. So any discussions or something like that?
Yes, lovely presentation, Sri. And now I request Dr. Veena to take over the Q&A session. Over to you, Dr. Veena.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And before we move on to the question and answer session, thank you so much, Shri Kuti, for this wonderful presentation on mindfulness. You have given a lot of inputs, and I'm sure all of our participants would have taken at least one message from today's session and would implement in their lives. Thank you so much. And participants, the floor is open for question and answers. If you have any questions, kindly unmute yourself and go ahead, or you could put in the chat box so that I can facilitate it.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Sir, I am Dr.
Yes.
P. Mahadevan from Chidambaram. I have a question. When we want
Yes,
to
sir.
write down our thoughts, how is it possible when the thoughts are changing in fraction of seconds?
That's what. Yeah. Is the question complete, sir? Sir, am I audible to you? That's right. When I ask my clients to write the thoughts, so it takes time for them to. So this is brain process. It takes effort for them. So gradually these thoughts fade. Actually, I have seen in my clients. So I used to write the thoughts whenever I get a thought in my mind. Initially, when I was practicing, I used to write a thought. Like when some thought is coming to mind, it is like try. I'm not offending that the thoughts come, like we get 62,000 thought in a day, but most are repetitive, and it is like when you try it out, we can write it. Like with my limited experience, I feel that we can write it. And with some of my few clients, I have tried it also. So they used to bring with a lot of papers, like these are the thoughts, and finally they get fed up with writing. And finally, I have seen that the process of thinking just stops somewhere. I have
Thank you,
answered to
madam.
my knowledge. If anyone has contribution
Thank
towards
you.
it, they
Thank
can
you.
also come up. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question.
Dr. Veena, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 1 second, sir. A little bit of low network for me. So I hope, Mahadevan, sir, your question is answered.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, ma'am. So since the thoughts are repetitive, we need not write the repetitive thoughts. We can simply write the important thoughts, and in due course it will write. Thank you.
So when we write the repetitive thoughts, so that we can analyze how many times we have thought the same thing. We can do an introspection, like how many
Right.
times, and you can take the thought and you can handle maybe another way of approaching how to deal with the thoughts, so that it fades from our memory, like it goes. So to
Thank you.
add,
Thank you.
thank you, sir, for the question. I'll tell one more thing. I've told that my husband asked me, like, are you in your 50s? So I'm practicing mindfulness for like the last 6 months. And recently my husband came and asked me, like, can you tell your inputs about mindfulness? Because he's seeing the difference in me. Like, I'm dealing with situations, I'm handling my son very happily. I'm doing all the things. I'm planning my life. There is a goal. So I used to keep a goal, personal goal, career goal, my dream goals. So there is a lot of change happening. And he came and asked me, like, can you share the inputs? Then only I called Suresh sir and I told him. Then I thought, like, yeah, something has worked on me and he has seen the difference in me and he wanted to learn. Then I called Suresh sir and I asked him, sir, what about the seminar, like you told me before? So that was the really motivating thing for me to come up today, because he came and asked me and he started practicing mindfulness. I told him, like, you don't need to meditate all the time. When you're walking, you can learn mindfulness. You can walk through mindfulness. That's it. So I'd like to know your feedbacks from you, so that it will help me to like plan my next sessions, or like if any changes, like what I have to do, and whether you understood what I wanted to convey, like how is it?
yes, we have a few feedbacks in the chat box from Jyoti Armugam sir saying that this is wonderful session. It was very lively as you were connecting with most of your own life experiences and best wishes. And also from Jay Karan sir, thank you very much for bringing this session to us. Ms. Shrikuti, it is very imminent practice during tough times like this pandemic situation we are in. Thank you again. So, and we participants feedback is sent in the chat box also. Kindly send your feedbacks, and also the video is available in YouTube as well, so that you can access again for reference sake. Thank you so much. And any other questions from the participants?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Hi, Aarti again here. It was a very nice session, and I really enjoyed it. Like I said earlier, your mindfulness really helped me. I mean, I will definitely looking forward to use it, because, like you said, you started using it. So as I went for counseling myself, even I was told to concentrate on me first. So they told me to do the self-care and then try to concentrate on other things. So I definitely think this will play an important role in all of our psychologists and other people, because we are taking in a lot of negative thoughts from others, and invariably it is affecting them. So definitely it will be much useful. This is one feedback that I wanted to give you. One question, I don't know how to put it. I'm mostly into industrial psychology, so a lot of things that I come across is the work pressure from my friends, clients, and everything. Uh, so people, you told me, like, for example, when you wash plates, you told to love the job you do. So slowly, not like a a meditation or something. One by one, little by little concept, we can start practicing it. So mostly the people that I talk to with, or that I give counseling to with, they don't even have time to do anything apart from being their laptop. So they have they work till 2 o'clock in the night. They get up like 10 in the morning. Mostly you can take it males and females also. Like they do two types of work, but males they are like always into laptop. They hate their job. They are working because of this lockdown because they're financially dependent on their job, and it's not easy to change now. The job market is very down. So literally they're hating their job and they don't have time to even spend time with their family. I literally had a case 2 weeks back where he was like literally, he is having everything. He's financially independent. He's having 3 to 4 houses. His wife is also working. He is having a beautiful kid. He is like a very financially well from family, but he's completely out of his mind and he doesn't have time to do anything. And he hates everything. He hates his job. He hates whatever he is doing. So it was very difficult handling him, but I think your mindfulness can help him. But I just wanted to ask you, like, how these people, those who don't have time also, those who even hate their job also, like they don't want to sit in the laptop. How to love that? Because if I can make them love their laptop, like in your mindfulness, I don't like washing dishes, you said, but you started liking it. So if you don't, they don't like their laptop at all. So how to help them? I just wanted some tips on that.
Yeah, that's a very wonderful question. So what I ask my clients whenever they come and say, I ask them, are you going to wash? Are you watching? Are you looking into your Instagram account? Are you watching YouTube some random videos? Do you have time for all these things? Mindfulness doesn't require you to sit and meditate for a long time. It is like being in the present, developing the gratitude. I'll tell you one thing. I don't know what happens to your clients, but when my clients come, I just ask them the timetable, all timetable of their life, what they do each and hour. Like I sit with them, I ask them like what you do. Then we try to figure it out. I'll tell you, this is like, am I audible? So when I started, I have a kid as my home. I am working. I take freelance work. Myself, my husband, and my son is working. So when I started working on mindfulness, I really devoted 6 hours of learning, 2 hours of meditation. I used to plan my day completely. Like I used to pre-prep all the things that I have to cook. So I make sure that by 8 o'clock, I'll shut my kitchen. You should not ask me anything after 8 o'clock. I'll close my kitchen. So I'll cook the morning breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. I'll pack the dinner in the refrigerator. I cook everything. I come back, I clean my house. At 9, I'm on my desk. I wake up something around 5. I do my meditation. I do my mindfulness meditation. I reduce my time of simply seeing videos like YouTube videos, random YouTube videos, looking into Facebook randomly. So the 5 minutes that I get from there, that can add up. I just ask my clients, are you looking into your Instagram account? Are you simply chatting with your friends? Why can't you invest that 5 minutes in the mindfulness practice? It is just understand your emotions, understand your feelings. When you walk also, you can be mindful, aware about things happening around you, be kind to things. Or like just gently touching you, telling yourself like, I will do this today. So things doesn't happen as my plan some days, but I know how to manage it. I know how to feel grounded. Some days I wake up and there won't be any power in my house, so I can't grind anything. There was a day where our gas cylinder got empty. My husband forget to book the gas cylinder, but I was like, okay, some days doesn't happen as we planned. So when we plan also, we have to be very realistic. We should understand what we can do in that. And mindfulness or any practice that you do is for you. See, you are working. For whom you are working? For whom you are working? You should be alive to enjoy what you get from your work. If you're not alive, if you're not living, what is the purpose of the job that you're doing? So this requires a kind of motivation. That is what we therapists do. I always motivate my clients to the maximum that I can. I always motivate them. I always encourage them. I ask them to take 5 minutes from your day and practice mindfulness. The next day they come, I'll tell them take 10 minutes from your life. So I just keep on expanding it. And finally, when someone starts experiencing it, and in between also we used to motivate them like, you are doing great and I believe in you, I trust in you that you can come out with this. Like developing an empathy towards them. When they are telling me, I'm very empathetic towards them, that I feel very empathy, I feel very connectedness, I feel an attitude of kind and compassion to them in understanding what is their situation. I'm like suggesting like I said, I prepare an entire timetable of what we do. From there, I pick up some time and I ask them, like, can you please practice it during this time? Is it possible for you? We can't force anyone to practice. We can just tell them only, like, it may be good for you. What do you think? Maybe I'll give some positive suggestions also, like this has worked for these people, or this has, like, giving an encouragement that this therapy works for them. So maybe sometimes I give the scientific evidence and also it shows that it has worked. Maybe I'll ask them to practice their mindfulness with me, along with me, where I'll be helping them to control their emotions, thoughts, and all. So what I do is, like, ask them whether they have time for all these other activities, and, like, whether are you doing everything. So maybe there will be, no one has, like, I believe that everyone has a half an hour to take in their life. Everyone has, whoever it is. If they are not having a half an hour for themselves, what is the purpose of living? It's my idea of the thing. So if anyone have any contribution to it, you can contribute, because it's my limited knowledge. I am just like 4 years of experience in therapy.
Definitely, it was helpful. And I just wanted to have an idea. Like, we each of us give different suggestions from our own experience, from our own things. I wanted to know how to help with mindfulness, because mindfulness is something that I also learned. I mean, it was there, but you expanded our thoughts, you expanded our view of looking at it, and you taught us how to go about it. So I wanted to know more about it, how we can implement and help others. So thank you for the wonderful session. Definitely it's helpful for me, if not for others. In the first hand, I will tell it will be helpful for me. Thank you for the wonderful session.
Yes.
Actually,
Thank you so much.
Actually, this is a base. Excuse me. This is a base of the things, and you all should learn much more about it. Like, when you learn, only you will understand. When you practice, you will understand. I can talk for hours about mindfulness. I can bring you to mindfulness and all. But this 1 hour where I can share you, like, a small glimpses of what it. So if you are interested, go back, read into the study. It is a 25,000 old culture practice. There's a lot of stuff you can which will help you. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, Mr. Kuti, and hi, everybody. I hope everybody is doing good and staying safe. I just want to make a mention of something, and this is similar to what Mr. Kuti has been sharing with us. Last year, we all went into the pandemic, and it was a good time for me to reflect. And that's when I stumbled upon the Vipassana meditation technique, okay, from where actually the mindfulness stems from. So, I mean, as ma'am spoke so much about mindfulness, and if you want to know how you really can practice it, Vipassana would be a good way to start. Now, as I said, it's a very simple practice, but very difficult to master. And it's as simple as just sitting in a place and just observing your breath. Yeah, it's for me personally, it has been a game changer in the way I control my thoughts, feelings, and there were a lot of questions around how do we manage our thoughts. None of us can manage our thoughts. We can only observe our thoughts and let go of things that are not required on the canvas. So my humble suggestion, I've shared a few videos with Dr. Suresh, so you can reach out to them, and also a PDF document on mindfulness. If that could be of help, I mean, it would make more sense for me to be in the session and join the session and hear from Ms. Kuti. So I will again make a mention of it. It is called Vipassana meditation. I'll leave that on the chat. And yeah, you have to experience that for yourself to know how much good it can do to you. Thank you so much.
It's stemming from Vipassana meditation practice from Buddhist era or Buddhist culture of that. So Vipassana, like, when you go back to books and all, you can read much more about Vipassana and how to do it and all. What I told is very limited thing that I can include in like 40-minute session. So if I forgot about Vipassana, thank you, sir, for reminding me about the origin of mindfulness that we are talking right now. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jaykaran sir, for your valuable input, and definitely whatever you have shared with Dr. Suresh sir will be shared with all our participants. And thank you so much, Shri Kuti, and on behalf of the Department of Psychology, American College Madurai, and also our associates MSSW Chennai, MS Chalamuthu Trust and Rehabilitation Center Madurai, and Psycho-Oncological Association Turkey. I take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt gratitude for accepting our request and taking such a wonderful session on mindfulness. Thank you so much. And participants, the feedback form and the link for e-certificate is given in the chat box, and also the YouTube link is also provided. You can watch the YouTube at your convenient time. Yeah, thank you so much, and we will meet with yet another wonderful session. Thank you. Be safe and take care.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sri. Thank you. Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you, Veena. Thank you, Suresh sir. Thank you, everyone, to give me an opportunity. And if my talk made someone sleep, then also I'm happy, because sleep is something that we don't get usually, always. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for being mindful with me for this last 1 hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Yeah.